This past week has been absolutely insane for the Alpine team. Since Sunday, it's been one disaster after another, with false senses of hope and pitfalls of credibility. It is safe to say this team is vastly different to the one we had, say, last week or the one before that. This past weekend unraveled in a very chaotic way, so let's see at it day by day. For the first problem, we have to take a broader look at the season so far. I would say the second domino of this whole situation, we will talk about the first one later on, fell during the French Grand Prix at Alpine's home track, where rumors suggested that Alonso would be replaced by Piastri during at least one practice session. Seeing as the setup was tricky to fine-tune, and Alonso being the best out of the two full-time drivers at setting up the car, it ended up being postponed. That weekend also saw declarations by Alpine's team boss Otmar Szafnauer, stating, "I wasn't in the team when they signed Fernando Alonso," in what can only be described as washing his hands of any responsibility to do with his driving. This is a backhanded slap we can expect when we see a driver underperforming massively, but not from a driver who's finished in front of his teammate in 5 out of the last 7 races, and those other 2 being mostly the team's fault with strategy and pit stop issues. Rain on the track is usually an indicator of a great performance incoming for Alonso, and this weekend looked like no exception. The track was optimal for his running and he set impressive times in free practice and all through qualifying, but it all came undone in the final run of Q3. His teammate Esteban Ocon is a proven race winner in mixed conditions here in Hungary. In the end, he qualified 0.06 of a second in front of Alonso and would start in 5th place to Alonso's 6th. Immediately after the lights went out, Ocon looked straight at his rear view mirror to where Alonso was, and for the second time this season, pushed him into the wall. Drivers overtook them on the outside, but Esteban was laser focused on his only objective, to keep his teammate behind at all costs. In the end, the Spaniard finished in front, but not after letting out this message over the radio. Never in my life have I seen a defense like Esteban, which is quite a statement to hear from a driver with the longest Formula 1 career ever. That same afternoon, we heard some declarations that we hadn't heard since late 2021, where the first domino fell. That fall was caused by Alpine CEO Laurent Rossi, who fired team boss Martin Budkowski, shut the door on team consultant Alain Prost, and kept his distance with the head of operations Davide Brivio, who he pushed away from Alonso's bubble. Those declarations were along the lines of how good Alonso is as a driver, how thankful the team is to have him on board, and how much they valued his experience and ability. Szafnauer also said nice things for the first time, and assured the press that only details remained before Alonso and Alpine could finalize a contract extension into 2023. At 10 AM Central Europe time, it was announced that Alonso had signed with the Aston Martin team for 2023 on a multi-year deal. The press went nuts. Over on Alpine, they assured that they had absolutely no idea of this deal, and that they found out at the same time as the rest of the media. Szafnauer came out with a press statement where they say they couldn't reach Fernando and that he probably was out on a yacht on the Greek Isles. Later, they gave a more detailed explanation of the statements that they had put out earlier that day. Otmar said Alpine wanted to renew Alonso for 2023, but on a 1-year deal, under what can be assumed that seat-warming season for Piastri. He, on the other hand, wanted a 2+1 or a 3+1 deal, with 2 or 3 years of guaranteed stability and an extra one under option. Aston Martin gave him a 2+1 deal. At 2 AM Melbourne time, there was a press release by the Alpine team, announcing Oscar Piastri as their 2023 driver. This release was made public exclusively on social media and without tagging the driver in question. At this time, Piastri and his manager Webber, who both live in Australia, were logically sound asleep. Normally, when it comes to an announcement, and more so a first-time deal for a driver, the info is released at a time convenient for both team and driver, for them to be able to answer questions, contact the press, share the excitement with their friends and family, and more. So this was off from the start. 2 hours later, at 4 AM Melbourne time, Piastri made an extremely controversial statement, which we all have read. For those of you who don't know, the statement reads as follows. I understand that, without my agreement, Alpine Formula 1 have put out a press release this afternoon that I am driving for them next year. This is wrong, and I have not signed a contract with Alpine for 2023. I will not be driving for Alpine next year. As the cherry on top of this Alpine-shaped feces cake, a minute after Piastri's post, Fernando Alonso posted to his Instagram story, revealing that he wasn't quite in the Greek Isles and unable to answer his phone, but he was back home in Oviedo, where he karted around his track all afternoon. The caption on the story was "Paradise." There have been no further comments on the matter by Alpine nor Piastri so far, but this situation is far from over. If there's one thing that's clear, is that Piastri has no intention of driving for Alpine for this upcoming 2023 season. It is no secret to anyone who has been following F1 for more than a week that Fernando Alonso is a very calculated guy, and nothing slips his mind. It should also come as no surprise then that the timing of his announcement was, let's say, extra special. You see, it was on August 1st. Why is this date so important? Because Oscar Piastri's contract with the Alpine team as a third driver and reserve driver allegedly expired on July 31st. This contract was set to give the team full control over Piastri's seat situation, but since August 1st, this was no longer the case, meaning that the announcement would be essentially void. Piastri should now be a free driver, and no unilateral agreement can be struck. We still have a long way to go when it comes to the end of this Alpine crisis, and there's a lot to come from both sides. Alpine will not let Piastri go, and he will do his best to get out of that team. If you ask me, this is a crisis with a name, and his name is Laurent Rossi.